Hey everyone, welcome to another $1,000 strap search. I've got my $1,000 in singles here and I'm about to show you what I found. But before I do, let's talk about this week's tip. Now, my friend Dennis, who's no longer with us, when he would do his strap searches, he said that uh, he put a note with a 1 on top, and the second note would have number 2, the third note would be number 3, the fourth note 4, and the fifth note would start with a 5. Every time he did a strap search, that's what he did. He put notes in order on the top of that, and he did that for a really good reason. He did that so that if anybody was going through, or if he was going through notes from the bank, and he saw that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, the odds of that happening are insane. That would be 1 in 100,000 to randomly find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the top 5 notes. So he knew that by putting notes like this, when he returned them to the bank, when he got notes, he saw that, then he knew that either he went through them already or somebody went through them already. And I decided I'm going to start doing that. I know that I've had a few banks tell me that people were looking for singles, so I have the feeling that people in my area are starting to catch on to what I do. So I'm just thinking, if as strap searchers, if we all did that, then even if we got a strap that we ourselves didn't search, if we've got one from someone else and it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the top 5 notes, well, then we would know it's already been hunted. It can save a little bit of time. I mean, yeah, you can always catch something that someone else missed, but in honor of Dennis, I'm going to start doing that on all of these because to me it makes sense. That way, if I happen to catch a few straps that aren't that great, well, maybe somebody did go through them and I'll know right away. So yeah, if we all do that, that's kind of a cue to the rest of us that they've already gone through. All right, that's what I've got this week. Let's slide that out of the way and see what I found. Starting off with, this is an interesting trinary. Trinaries I save trying to match serial numbers, not because trinaries are worth anything. And even this one here is a trinary, still not worth anything, but it looks cool. You got a 7, then you got 3 5s, and you got 3 4s, and then you got a 5 again. So I don't know what the fake serial number people would call that, a triple double or a double triple. I don't even care. I think it's a trinary, and I know that people are going to try to tell you this is worth a ton of money. It's not. It's worth face value. But that's the first one that I had found. Speaking of fake fancies, here is a true trinary. We all know a binary has 2 digits. A true binary is zeros and ones after the binary code. And the fake fancy serial number hunters love to say that zeros, ones, and twos are a true trinary. Even though there is no 0, 1s, and 2s code, there is no trinary system. They like to say that because it's 0s, 1s, and 2s, those are the 3 lowest digits. Well, fine. What about 8? What about 7s, 8s, and 9s? Those are just as rare. Those are the highest digits. Should those be worth more? If you think 0s, 1s, and 2s should be worth more, then so should 7s, 8s, and 9s. The thing is, if I say 5s, 6s, and 7s, those are just as rare as 0s, 1s, and 2s, or just as rare as 7s, 8s, and 9s. So, no, it's not worth anything more. For those of you convinced still that there are less true trinaries than there are anything else, well, does that mean if you have a true trinary that starts with 0 instead of 1 or 2, that it's worth a third more because only a third of them happen to start with a 0? Well, what if it starts with a 1? Does that make it worth a third more than the others because only a third of them start with a 0? Or with a 1? Or what if it starts with a 2? Does that mean it's worth more because only a third of them start with a 2? No. You see how you're just chopping up the same number? It's not worth anything. But people like to say so whatever. It's not. Worthless. 2s, 5s, and 7s on this one. 3s, 5s, and 9s. A little bit of a wedding transfer there. So what? 3s, 4s, and 8s. Quads. Quad 1s. Also, quads aren't worth anything. I pull quads just to try to match serial numbers. That's it. And people say, oh, if they aren't worth anything, how come you have 1,000 of them in a box? Well, because that's a great eccentric savings account, isn't it? I can spend that $1,000 anytime I would like, and I didn't really have to think about it when I put it away. It didn't hurt saving that $1,000. Quad 2s on this one, quad 4s here, quad 5s, quad 5s again. See how many of these I find? That's why they aren't rare. Quad 8s, quad 9s, also 5, 8, 8, 8, 9, 9, 9, 9. Some of our buddies will call this a chunky ladder, or as I prefer to call it, a chunky monkey. And no. They say, oh, it's in order, 5, 8, 9. And there's a couple of them there, so it's chunk of a ladder. No. The only chunks I'm thinking of are the chunks I'm about to blow, trying to believe those are worth anything. No, they are not. Stop telling people that. Then I found I found 5 of a kind, 5 in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. Still no additional value there, just kind of neat. Then my stars, 2017 A star, always double check, see if they're filled. This is a 2017 star, 2017, 2017, 2017, 2013, 2013 B, but it is not in the duplicate range. The duplicate range is 250,000 or less, or 3.2 million to 9.6 million. And this is 1.4 million, so it's not in the range. Then we've got another 2013, 2013, 2013, another 2013B, but once again, not in the duplicate range. This one is number 533,000. It would have to be 250,000 or less, so that one doesn't qualify. Then the older notes I found, 2003A, 2003A, both in rough shape. 2003A, much better shape. I save all notes that are 20 years old or older. I only keep the best, but I pull all of them, so I have something to compare. 2003A I note in good shape. That's cool. 2003 St. Louis. That one's nice. 2003, boy, someone would call that an error, but it's just damage. Damaged real bad. It's almost completely scratched off. So that's definitely going back into circulation. Unless maybe I should put that in my fake error pile. Maybe I'll do that. 2001, 1999, rough shape. 1999, little better shape. 1995, looking to see if it's a web note. Web notes were experimental notes in 88A, 1993, and 1995. The quick reference is right here. If it's got a location, this is the location indicator in the section D, note number 1. If it has that, it's not a web note, because a web note was done on a continuous roll of paper, so it didn't have a location. The other way to find is right over here. You're not going to have this giant letter. You're only going to have a single digit over there. And the other way, the last way, is on the back of the note. But I mean, any one of those will tell you. Another 1995, pretty rough shape, also not a web note. 1985, 1977A, and check this out. Not the most exciting note, right? It's quad doubles, is that what it is? 88114488. It's 4 pairs. Now, some people will collect any note that's got 4 pairs anywhere on the note. The only way I ever would consider keeping a note is if the pairs are together like this, 88114488. So I was curious. I grabbed my book, The Green Guide of Fancy Serial Numbers, and I looked up quad pairs just to see, because I wanted some stats. And here we go. Quad pairs. You can see it's got pair of 7s, pair of 4s, pair of 5s, pair of 8s. And when we look at the reoccurrence, there's a total, remember, of 96 million combinations. And quad pairs only happens 5,040 times. That's rare. That does not happen that often. Now, is there huge demand for a note like that? Is there any demand at all for this? Probably not. Would I pay anything for this note? No, I wouldn't. But being that there's only 5,000 out of 96 million, that is rare. Now, once again, I'm not telling you to go out and buy one of these, but if you do run across one, just understand how rare it actually is to find. Surprisingly rare. I did not expect it to be that rare. Anyway, I'm not selling it. I'm not saying it's worth anything. I'm not in the market to buy any of them. I'm simply saying there's 5,000 out of every 96 million. So, yeah, maybe it is worth something. All right. What do I have this week? What did I pull? Well, let me get this out of the way. Slide this up here. I upgraded a note. This is what my most recent purchase was. This is a $50 Federal Reserve bank note. Now, this you can see right across the front says national currency, and it's not a Federal Reserve note. It's a Federal Reserve bank note. The Federal Reserve bank notes were intended to replace nationals. That's why they have national currency on there. Dan from Polar Currency did a great video explaining all this stuff, and I'll refer you to his video to go check out all the details. But this one here, as you can see, is from 1929, series of 1929. And instead of having an individual bank with a charter number be the backer of the note, they decided that the 12 individual Federal Reserve banks would be the backers of the note. So if you look at this one, it says the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, Illinois. And then if you continue reading, will pay to the bearer on demand $50. So it's the Federal Reserve Bank that's guaranteeing this, not the Treasury. It's not a Federal Reserve note. It's not the Federal Reserve in general saying that it's worth something. It is the actual Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago that says this is worth something, and they are guaranteeing it. And we can see here, redeemable in lawful money of the United States at the United States Treasury or at the bank of issue, which of course would be the Federal Reserve Bank. Ulysses S. Grant is featured on there. It's interesting because there's these little black lines on the bottom. If I remember, let's see if I can, it says cashier, but I think the part that's blacked out was assistant cashier, just like you've got assistant deputy governor here. And then over here was the assistant treasurer that is blacked out there. Just an interesting little thing that they had on there. They did these in the brown ink, so the serial number and the seal are both brown. And if we check out the back, it does have the standard back of a regular $50 note. Just a really cool time period for it to have a note from. Now, you guys hear me all the time talk about when you're getting specific notes, if at all possible, you want to get the rarest denomination. And $50 bills are a very rare denomination. I mean, think about it. If you ever have a $100 bill, that's the largest denomination you can have. But when you break it, do you ever get a 50? No, you usually get 520s because a lot of places won't take 100, or a lot of places won't even take a $50 bill. So if you start with 100 and break it, now you still have the problem of trying to break the 50. So yeah, 50s are just a very underused denomination. There aren't many of them printed, which means they don't circulate very much, and they're very easy for the Federal Reserve to just end up chopping up because we don't use them very much at all. I got out the book, Paper Money of the United States, because you guys will ask, and I looked it up. And my particular Federal Reserve Bank note, here we go. It's from Chicago, 1880G. They printed only 300,000 of these, 300,000. And in a VG8, it's 110. In a 12, it's 120. In a 20, it's 150. 175 for a 40. Choice uncirculated is 250. Or I should say crisp uncirculated is 250. Choice uncirculated is 375. And gem is 950. In comparison, let's look at the page before. Here's the 20s. And you can see how there was 2 million, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 900,000, 2 million. So there's quite a few of the 20s printed. And how many of these? Were there millions? No, not at all. The biggest one was 600,000 from Cleveland. So yeah, not very many of those printed at all. Now the hundreds, even the hundreds had a lot. 400,000, 200,000, 100,000, 300,000. So not quite as many as the 50s, but 50s, like I said, you don't see them as often. So when it comes to picking a denomination, I highly recommend 50s, especially for the small size notes, because they're still affordable, yet they are much rarer. All right, if you learned anything new, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. Love reading all your comments. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.